As I'm recording this, CD Projekt co-founder Marcin Iwiński has just finished up his discussion with Geoff Keighley at the E3 Coliseum, and I must say this was something of a breath of fresh air amongst the smog that we're used to from a lot of AAA game developers in the modern era. In 2019, we tend to eye the top brass of these big development companies with an air of suspicion these days. We see them as greedy corporate figureheads with dollar signs in their eyes, who look at the people who play their games, and in their eyes, we all sort of slowly turn into big stacks of money like in an old Bugs Bunny cartoon. And really, this is kind of a deserved caricature when you look at the direction that a lot of AAA companies are going. Games are no longer art, they are simply vehicles for monetizing the members of their fandom. And I'm not talking about the actual on-the-ground workers, the developers, the people doing the art and the story and passionately trying to put these projects together. I'm talking about the people who are above them, who often make publishing and financial decisions without considering the role of video games as art. So amidst that kind of a climate in gaming culture, this was a definite breath of fresh air. Iwiński is a CEO who comes across as just a regular guy who is passionate about video games, incredibly humble, and seems a little surprised at times that he's actually in the position that he's in. The head of a gaming company that is approaching 1,000 employees, that has put out one of the biggest open world games ever, and is currently working on one of the most anticipated games of all time. And yet he talks about it all as if he's running a small indie startup with a couple of his friends. Now, the more skeptical among you might say it's an act, and obviously it could be, but the things he says are also backed up by what the company has been doing. And now CD Projekt is not a perfect company, of course. We're not here to make that claim. They've had growing pains, they've had hard lessons learned, they have had to learn the hard way in a lot of ways, and they've made mistakes. And Iwiński is very open about these things. But I recommend checking out this talk if you're curious about the history of CD Projekt, if you're curious about their philosophy and where they're going. You can watch the replay at twitch.tv/E3 Coliseum. It'll also probably pop up on YouTube somewhere, but I want to look at some of the things that were said in this talk. Now, there wasn't much specific information given about Cyberpunk 2077. Iwiński did reaffirm that Keanu Reeves has a huge role in this game, so it's not just a celebrity cameo for publicity and that kind of a thing. He came in for 15 days of dialogue recording, and apparently has the second most number of lines of any of the characters in the game. So that tells you something. But aside from those little tidbits, which were, for the most part, already known, there wasn't any specific info about the gameplay of Cyberpunk 2077. If you're interested in details about the gameplay that's come out of E3, the gameplay demo that certain people had access to at E3 this year, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and then tune into the Augmented Reality podcast tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, where we are going to dive into all of the information that's come out about the actual gameplay, as well as a ton of other stuff about Cyberpunk 2077. It's going to be a big show tonight. Please tune in for that, right here on the Triple S League YouTube channel. The most important things that came out of this talk with Marcin Iwiński was his vision for the company's future and their philosophy behind game development. CD Projekt is growing as a company. Keighley asked questions about their goals and whether or not the types of games that they develop are going to change. In other words, are they going to continue going with the heavily story-focused open world experiences, or are they going to sort of change and update with the times? And Iwiński's response is basically that he envisions the company staying the course.
I think actually people, and that's what Keanu said on stage, that he was drawn to a fascinating story, and I think that's the beauty of the games we are doing. I think people always love great stories, and we are great storytellers. So I don't think this is going to change anytime soon.
Right. He goes on to talk about how the eventual goal is to have 2 development teams so they can be working on 2 large games simultaneously, something they tried to do already, but weren't able to. They didn't have the experience to be able to manage that, nor the numbers of people that they required. But that is a future goal of theirs. He also talks about how they're going to have more and more technology that they can work with and more ways to get games out to people. They don't intend to change in their core philosophy of delivering a great story-focused experience.
Development of technology, it will just allow us to deliver it to more gamers all around the world. Yes, someone who cannot afford a console or you know, high-spec PC, maybe we'll be able to stream the game somehow on iPad or something else. Yes, just with a hand controller. So I think this is super exciting. In terms of the online experience, I mean, we have some R&D. We definitely would like to learn, and obviously Gwent, our Witcher card game, it's a huge learning lesson for us in terms of how to operate a live game and how to get constant updates. Having said that, I think we are fully focused and committed to storytelling and this epic experiences. So yes, expanding, definitely we're looking to that, but here and now it's big story games like Cyberpunk or Witcher.
But nothing wrong with that.
As you can see, that got some spontaneous applause from the audience, which is good, fantastic. This is what the game industry needs. Keighley also asked about plans for the future in terms of expansions and DLC and that kind of a thing, and do they have a roadmap for Cyberpunk going forward?
When you think of Cyberpunk, how that game evolves, you know, coming out April and it's going to be great, but it's like, do you think of like expansions and, you know, all that content, and do you have a roadmap or plan on sort of how you add more story and sort of new ways?
Of course. We're a well-organized company. We have a roadmap.
Exactly.
I didn't say anything else.
Exactly.
Obviously, we have a plan, and we know what we want to do. But then we look at things, and actually, we're really looking how gamers receive what we release, how they like it, and then we actually tweak the plans. So yes, we would love at certain points to tell more stories about The Witcher, but when and how, I cannot tell you now. So it is the CP now, and then once we finish the game and hopefully you guys like it, then we see, okay, so that's where we are, that's what we've learned, and right now we are taking it further, because one thing which I hope is visible, we are not a games factory. We treat games as an art, and we want to push the bar higher with every single game release. So it's not about getting Witcher 3.5 out there, would be fairly easy. Of course, it's still very difficult, but I know using the same engine, telling the same stories, the technology is established, and making a quick dollar. That's not about it.
Now wait a second, Marcin. I thought...
People will buy anything.
I mean, don't you know that...
They will buy anything.
Think of all the money you could make selling us cool cyberpunky gadgets through microtransactions.
I think horse armor is fine. The price point at the time was the issue.
It's important never to idolize a person or a company in any industry to the point where you think they can do no wrong or where you're unwilling to criticize. A few years ago, it seemed like Bethesda was operating with a similar philosophy to what Iwiński is describing here. But now we've seen them degenerate to the point where their unofficial motto seems to be,
people will buy anything. That doesn't mean you should do it. They will buy anything.
And so it's heartening to know that there are still CEOs and executives of gaming companies that think this way and want to keep that going into the future. And we need more of that, and that's the kind of thing we need to support if we want gaming to have a good future. Not to blindly support a company because we think they can do no wrong, but when they are doing right by us, the consumer, the consumers of this art form that we call gaming, we need to support that, both vocally and with our wallets. And then, of course, the opposite is also true. When they start to go wrong, we need to do the opposite.
That sounds terrible.
That sounds real bad.
Thank you so much for watching this. Don't forget to slam that like button if you appreciated this video, and also subscribe. Like I said, on the Augmented Reality podcast tonight, we'll be doing a deep dive into everything we know about the gameplay and other information about Cyberpunk 2077 that's come out of E3 and all of the surrounding events and interviews. So join us for that. We have fun interaction with the live chat. It's going to be a good time. Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon.
This game is clearly one of the most anticipated out there, and I think what's great is it looks so fresh and you know, captures the imagination, but it comes from a studio that's you know, coming off Witcher 3, which won, you know, Game of the Year. For you guys to follow up with this is it gets us all excited, I think, about where games are going. So thank you so much for coming by. Thanks to you and everyone at CDPR for pushing our industry forward continually, and we look forward to playing it next April. Guys, give it up. Marcin, CD Projekt Red.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell, and then check out some of these other videos. Find the link to our Discord server and other important stuff in the description below.